My own mother looked me in the eye on Christmas Eve and said, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house," then shut the door in my face. That was the moment I realized I'd been funding people who stopped seeing me as family years ago. The snow hadn't started when I left Seattle. The city still blinked in holiday lights as I loaded the last of the gifts into my trunk, careful not to crush the pie. I had baked it twice already that week, trying to replicate the golden crust from my grandmother's old recipe, the one Mom used to make every Christmas before everything shifted. This time, I got it just right. Cinnamon forward, the way Ryan liked it. I even packed it in a reusable ceramic dish with a pine cone pattern I thought Mom might like. It had been 5 years since I left Portland, 3 since I'd spent a proper Christmas there. But this year felt different. I wasn't just visiting. I was reaching back, hoping, trying to stitch together something that had frayed. I started the drive early. 8 hours stretched ahead of me, but the roads were clear and the sky was hopeful. As I crossed the Columbia River and merged onto Interstate 5 South, I called Mom. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, just checking in," I said, cheerful. "Made it past Olympia already." "Oh," she said. "That was fast. You're really coming today?" "Yeah," I laughed. "That's still the plan. Should be there by dinner time. I've got something special for dessert." She paused. "Well, we're having a small gathering. Nothing big. Don't worry if you're late." Small gathering? I wanted to ask who was coming. Ryan's new girlfriend, maybe? Her new co-workers? But her tone felt clipped. I told myself she was just busy preparing, hung up, and turned the music back on. 3 hours later, somewhere near Eugene, I called Ryan. He answered with wind in the background and music blaring. "Hey sis, what's up?" "I'm 3 hours out." "Oh, right. Cool. I'm kind of in the middle of something. Can I call you back?" He didn't. By the time I hit the outskirts of Portland, the snow had arrived, thick and sudden, blanketing the windshield and turning the streets of my childhood into something unrecognizable. Still, my stomach fluttered with nervous energy, the kind of hope that's almost painful. As I turned onto Maplewood Avenue, memories came fast. The old bike trail where I broke my arm, the stoplight where Mom used to blast holiday music and sing off-key, the little park where we sledded in plastic bins when we couldn't afford real sleds. I slowed to take it all in, my headlights brushing over snowbanks and familiar porches wrapped in string lights. Then I saw it. Our house. It looked beautiful. Tasteful white lights lined the eaves. The driveway had been perfectly shoveled. A massive wreath hung on the front door. It looked like a Hallmark postcard. There were 3 unfamiliar cars in the driveway. A red SUV, a black sedan, and what looked like a brand new Lexus. Mom's blue Honda was tucked in behind them. I parked on the curb and checked myself in the mirror. My face looked tired, but I added a little lipstick, fluffed my hair, and pulled my coat tight. The pie still felt warm in my arms. The gifts, wrapped in navy and silver, each with a handwritten tag, jingled in their tote as I stepped onto the walkway. Snow crunched underfoot as I approached the front door. Laughter spilled from inside. Piano music played faintly. It sounded full, festive, everything I wanted to be part of again. I took a breath, pressed the bell, footsteps, then silence. Then the door opened. Mom stood there holding a glass of red wine. She was wearing a black cocktail dress I'd never seen before, and her hair was styled like she'd just come from a professional blowout. She looked shocked. For a split second, I saw it. The warmth in her eyes. Recognition. Maybe even something close to happiness. But then, like a shudder, It closed. Her smile vanished. She glanced behind her quickly, then back at me, and said with rehearsed politeness, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." The pie tilted slightly in my grip. I blinked, confused. "Mom, it's me, Natalie." Her lips barely moved. There must be some mistake. Behind her, someone laughed. Music swelled. I took a step forward. "I've been driving all day. I called you. I brought gifts. I made the pie." But her eyes went colder. Her voice dropped. "Not now, Natalie. This isn't a good time." And then she started to close the door. The door began to close, and I was still holding the pie. Snowflakes clung to my coat as if trying to hold me in place. My mother's words echoed in the hollow space between us. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." I blinked, stunned. "Mom, it's me, Natalie." Her eyes darted behind her. Laughter bubbled from somewhere deeper in the house. The warmth I'd imagined, rehearsed even, never came. No smile, no hug, just tight lips, a half-full glass of red wine, and a polished expression like I was someone selling Bibles at the door. "I'm afraid you're mistaken," she said again, this time a notch louder, as if to make sure anyone listening could hear. I laughed, because what else could I do? "You told me dinner was at 6. I brought gifts. The pie. Grandma Quinn's recipe. You used to love." I said. She cut me off, her voice suddenly sharp, but still quiet enough to not disrupt the gathering inside. "This isn't a good time." My fingers tightened around the tote bag of gifts. "Not a good time? You're hosting Christmas dinner and I'm your daughter." Another voice called out from inside. Male. Familiar. "Gloria? Who's at the door?" Before I could react, Ryan appeared behind her, wearing a navy button-down and that signature half-smile he used when he wanted to seem casual. His gaze landed on me, and for a split second, panic flashed. I expected him to say something like, "Natalie, what are you doing out there?" But he didn't. He glanced at Mom, then back at me. "Everything okay out here?" he asked, as if I were a delivery person who'd brought the wrong package. I stared at him. "Ryan, you knew I was coming." He didn't even flinch. "I thought you canceled. That's what Mom said." "Number I called. We talked. You said—" My words started to shake. "Natalie," Mom interrupted, her voice now firm. "We have guests. Important people. This drop-in visit wasn't expected." She was still holding the door with one hand, half shielding the living room behind her. The faint scent of honey-glazed ham and roasted garlic floated out, mixing with the cold air. Inside, I caught a glimpse of a lavish dining table, fine china, tall tapered candles, and wine glasses that shimmered under the chandelier. A woman's laugh rang out, high and sparkling. Ryan's girlfriend, maybe. The one from Aspen. I swallowed. "I drove 8 hours through snow. I've been planning this for weeks. I sent extra money for the holiday dinner." My mother didn't blink. "And we're grateful for that. But tonight is not about you." The words sliced through me. Not about me? I shifted the tote bag to one arm and reached down for the pie. "At least take this. It's still warm." They hesitated. Ryan looked over his shoulder. "We really should get back. Dinner's starting." Gloria's smile returned, but it was plastic. "We can talk tomorrow. Just go home, Natalie." "Where do you think home is?" I whispered. No answer. I stepped forward, trying to place the tote gently near the door, but Mom blocked the entry with her heel. "Please don't make a scene." A new voice, female, called from inside. "Ryan, your girlfriend's telling that Aspen story again." He turned to go. And that was when I felt it. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a decision. Calculated, choreographed, rehearsed. They didn't forget I was coming. They didn't miscommunicate. They just didn't want me there. I slowly let go of the pie dish. It dropped softly into the snow, a muffled thud, steam rising as the crust cracked open. I didn't even flinch when the hot ceramic grazed my boots. One of the gift bags slipped from my arm. Tissue paper fluttered out like defeated white flags. Neither of them bent to pick anything up. Instead, Gloria offered a cool, detached smile. "Merry Christmas, Natalie." She shut the door. Just like that. And inside, the room burst into cheers, someone counting down, like the ball was dropping in Times Square. 3, 2, 1. But outside, in the bitter silence, time froze. I stood alone, pie shattered in the snow, while cheers erupted inside the house I used to call home. The motel room smelled like bleach and old carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed, coat still on, pie crust still clinging to the lining of my gloves. The ceramic dish was cracked, left behind like me, steam long since faded into the night. I hadn't cried on the porch. I'd been too stunned, but here, surrounded by beige wallpaper and the buzzing of a mini-fridge, the tears came fast and hard. My breath hitched in my chest, and I doubled over, hugging the tote bag like it might anchor me to something real. Was this real? Had my mother actually closed the door on me, pretended not to know me, in front of a room full of people I'd never even met? I checked my phone. One missed call, from Ryan. I didn't want to hear excuses, but my fingers moved before my brain caught up. I called him back. He answered almost immediately. "Allie?" His voice was hushed. "Are you still outside?" "I'm at a motel," I said flatly. He exhaled, relieved. "Good. I didn't know you were actually coming. Mom told everyone you canceled." "I talked to her this morning," I snapped. "I told her I was on my way." A pause. Then, "Yeah, but she thought maybe you were just saying that, out of guilt. You've been busy." I bit down hard on my tongue. "I sent money for dinner. I baked a pie. I drove through a snowstorm." I know," he said quickly. "Look, Mom's just been really stressed. This dinner's important for her new business venture." I froze. "What business venture?" "The spa thing, with Richard. She didn't tell you?" Number. Of course she hadn't. "She's still working at the hospital, right?" Another pause. "She left last year. You know how she's always wanted to open something of her own? Country club contacts, investors, all that." "Ryan," I said, my voice low and even. "I've been sending her $800 a month for mortgage help." "I mean, that helped keep things going while she transitioned. You've always been supportive." Supportive, like a donor, not a daughter. "Is she still living in the house?" "Yes," he replied quickly. "Why?" "Because you're throwing holiday parties like you own the place, and I was standing on the porch like a stray cat." "Natalie," he sighed. "Please don't make this a thing." There it was. A thing. "I gave you $5,000 for a reliable car," I said, my voice rising. "Was that before or after your Aspen trip? Hey, come on, that was a gift. Number it was trust, and you used it to fund a vacation. I never said the car was the only thing I'd use it for." I stared at the ceiling. A water stain shaped like Florida stared back at me. I remembered my dad, now mostly just a Facebook birthday post. He'd left quietly, but at least he didn't lie to my face while taking my money. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. "Really. Maybe we can grab coffee tomorrow? Just you and me. Talk it out. I'd like that." Something about his tone shifted. Too smooth, too rehearsed. Sure, I said. You're the best, sis. Always understanding. Then it happened. He forgot to hang up. I didn't realize it until I heard him laugh. She totally bought it, he said, muffled now. Going to some hotel. Classic Natalie. Another voice joined. Female. Possibly his girlfriend. I told you, Ryan continued. She thinks paying the bills means she's invited to everything. So desperate to be part of things. Their laughter hit harder than any slammed door ever could. She's doing fine, my mother's voice chimed in. Have you seen her apartment in those photos? Travel, furniture. She doesn't need us. But we need her money, Ryan added, and someone clinked a glass. That's when I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp. Sharper than it had been in years. I opened my banking app and started taking screenshots. Every transfer, every lie, every time they said they needed me. There's a kind of clarity that only comes after you've been publicly humiliated, privately mocked, and financially drained. All in the same day. I sat in the motel room, lights off, only the pale glow from my laptop screen illuminating the space. The snow outside kept falling, soft and relentless. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, heart pounding with every click. I wasn't crying anymore. That had stopped. Now I was documenting. I opened my banking app. $800 to Gloria Quinn every month for mortgage assistance. 3 years straight. $500 here, $1,000 there. Labeled as car repairs, medical bills, emergency groceries. I clicked into an older folder in my email labeled Family. What I found made my stomach clench. A forwarded message from Ryan. Dated 2 years ago. She agreed to the extra $1,000 for the car repairs. That should cover the rest of the down payment on the boat. Maybe mention something about the transmission next month if we need the summer storage fees covered too. The subject line was smooth sailing. I remembered the call that week. He'd said his boss was threatening to fire him if he couldn't get to work reliably. I'd wired the money before finishing my coffee. Next came the credit card statements. I had added Mom as an authorized user on one of my cards, for medical expenses only. Over the last 6 months, there were charges at Nordstrom, Williams-Sonoma, even a high-end golf course. I knew Mom didn't golf. But Richard, her spa investor? He did. I kept scrolling. There was a moment I'll never forget. A purchase for $2,800 labeled Sedona Wellness Retreat. The charge hit the same week she'd called crying, saying the house might go into foreclosure. She had begged me for $2,000, said the bank wouldn't wait. I wired it that night. I had told myself then, just like all the other times, that this was love. That helping your family is what you do when you're the responsible one. That if you just gave enough, eventually the warmth would return, the way it used to be. When Sunday dinners were real, when Mom rubbed my back during flu season, when Ryan called me super sis. Instead, I had funded a lifestyle I was never welcome in. Click, click, screenshot, save. Each file I created was named not with emotions, but with dates, dollar amounts, and subjects. Deck 22, mortgagefalse.pdf. August 20th, boatfundlie.pdf. Novi_19CCA bus, mom.pdf. It felt cold, clinical, and yet strangely empowering. I stopped seeing myself as the daughter, or the sister, or the savior. I started seeing myself as evidence, as proof that love can be weaponized and sold. At 2:37 a.m., I stood in the bathroom and looked at myself under the flickering fluorescent light. My eyes were rimmed red, my hair limp. I looked hollow, like a woman grieving someone who hadn't died, but had simply erased her. I whispered into the mirror, just to hear something true. You didn't imagine it. They did this. All of it. Back at the desk, I opened a blank document and began typing. Not a story, not a journal entry, a report. Family support summary. Natalie Quinn. Under that, I listed every transfer, every credit usage, every fake emergency. I included quotes from emails, dates, cross-references with photos I now understood, vacations that lined up with crises. By 3:45 a.m., it was 10 pages long. I added a final line at the bottom. Estimated financial exploitation total, $83,459.27 over 5 years. Primary benefactors, Gloria Quinn and Ryan Quinn. Purpose, ongoing lifestyle maintenance masked as emergency need. Status, terminated. I stared at the blinking cursor. Then I saved the file. The name? Receipts, final.pdf. Next up, the accounts. One by one, I would cut the wires that made me their power source, and I would never plug back in. Anger, when it arrives quietly, is more dangerous than when it screams. It didn't rush in like fire. It seeped, slow, cold, like the snow piling outside the motel window, layer by layer, turning the world unrecognizable. I stared at my phone, the banking app still open. The same interface I'd used every month like clockwork, like devotion, like duty. Recurring transfer, $800 per month to Gloria Quinn, mortgage support. Status, active. I tapped Manage, then Cancel Transfer. It asked me, "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transaction?" Yes, I was sure. It felt like slicing through a cord, like freeing myself from a silent siphon. Cancelled. Next, Ryan, recurring transfer, $500 per month to Ryan Quinn, job support. Job support? That was a joke. He hadn't held a real job in 2 years, but he had managed ski trips, bar tabs, and high-end gaming gear, all on the back of the big sister who understood. I canceled that one too. Then came the credit cards. I logged in and found the authorized user tab. Gloria Quinn, added 2019. I clicked report as compromised, requested card reissuance with a new number, deleted the emergency use only access I had never once been consulted about. Then, the separate card I'd opened for medical expenses. Mom had said she was drowning in co-pays and prescription costs. I had imagined her picking up blood pressure meds and generic antibiotics. Instead, she'd been shopping at Neiman Marcus. That card? Closed. I opened my notes app and made a list titled Fraud Cleanup, Phase 2. It included call bank about mortgage legitimacy, end sublease to Ryan report abuse of credit lines, reallocate monthly support into personal savings, consult lawyer, if needed. Every bullet point made my shoulders sit straighter. Every action stripped away another layer of shame I hadn't even known I was wearing. This wasn't me turning my back on family. This was me turning my face toward the truth. I wasn't cutting them off out of revenge. I was severing myself from the machinery they'd built around me. A machine designed to make me feel guilty for building a life beyond Portland, for choosing success over proximity, for being useful, but never truly wanted. At 4:30 a.m., I drafted the email. 2. GloriaQuinn@gmail.com. RyanQuinn@gmail.com. Subject termination of financial support. Effective immediately. Mom, Ryan. All financial assistance from me ends today. This includes monthly transfers, credit access, and housing arrangements. Attached is a full record of all support provided over the last 5 years, totaling $83,459.27. Any future contact regarding money will be considered harassment and may be pursued legally. Do not reach out. Natalie. I stared at the draft. It felt brutal, unforgiving, but there was no other way to say it. They had stolen my kindness and worn it like a designer coat, only to throw me out in the snow. I hit send. Then I closed the laptop, sat back in the stiff motel chair, and listened. Silence. No alerts, no buzzes, no applause. But inside me, something shifted. Not relief. Not yet. But control. Control. I hadn't held in years. By dawn, I wasn't their ATM anymore. I was something far more dangerous, a woman with boundaries and proof. The first call came in at 6:12 a.m. I didn't answer. The screen lit up, Ryan, mobile, then faded. By 6:15, there were 2 voicemails, then 3, then 8. I turned on Do Not Disturb and placed the phone face down on the motel nightstand. Outside, the snow had stopped. The parking lot glistened under the early sun like someone had thrown crushed diamonds across the asphalt. Everything looked peaceful. Everything looked clean. I hadn't slept, but I felt strangely awake, as if the fog had finally cleared and I could see the exit. The coffee in the motel lobby was terrible, burnt, weak, but I took it black and walked outside. The cold hit my skin like truth, sharp. I welcomed it. I sat on the hood of my car and watched the town wake up. Somewhere behind me, in that house I grew up in, they were probably just discovering their credit cards didn't work. The transfers had stopped. The sublease was ending. The money pipeline they'd built, with me as the foundation, was dry. I sipped the bitter coffee and waited. At 7:02, the emails began. Ryan. Subject. You need to fix this right now. I'm already overdrawn. The party cost more than expected. Mom is freaking out. You had no right. Mom followed. Subject. After all we've done for you, emotional blackmail on Christmas? Really? I don't know what kind of breakdown you're having, but this ends now. I smiled. Not because it was funny. It wasn't. But because their panic made one thing crystal clear. They had never once considered I might say no. Not once. To them, I was permanent, predictable, the reliable one who always understood. Their emotional manipulation was just white noise now. Back in the room, I listened to the first voicemail. Ryan again. Allie, what the hell? I just got declined at the gas station. On Christmas? He sounded annoyed, like I'd inconvenienced him during a round of golf. The second was Mom, her voice tight with fury. I tried to buy coffee and my card was denied. You've embarrassed me. Fix this immediately. The third? Still Mom, but softer now, almost pleading. This is childish, vindictive. If this is about last night, we can talk. Don't throw away your family over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. As if being told you have the wrong house was a minor detail. As if I had imagined the shattered pie, the closed door, the laughter on the other side. I powered off the phone. They had lost access, not just to my money, but to my silence, and that they would feel far more deeply. At noon, I pulled off the highway at a small diner somewhere between Oregon and Northern California. One of those no-name places with pie in a rotating case, and the same waitress who's probably worked there for 30 years. She poured my coffee with a practiced hand. Traveling for Christmas? Coming back, I said simply. The visit ended early. She nodded like she understood everything without needing to ask why. Sometimes that's for the best. As I sipped, I noticed a bulletin board near the register. Handmade flyers, missing pets, tutoring offers, and right in the middle, a holiday volunteer poster from a local community center. Need a way to give back this Christmas? We need helping hands and warm hearts. I tore off a tab without thinking. For the first time in years, I had something my family had never allowed me to have. Time, and a choice in how I spent it. They lost control of my money, but more importantly, they lost control of my voice. And that was the first gift I gave myself. Power isn't loud. It doesn't always announce itself with slamming doors or raised voices. Sometimes it slips in quietly. A shift in posture, a breath drawn deeper, a decision made without permission. 3 days after Christmas, I sat cross-legged on the floor of my apartment in Seattle, surrounded by opened shipping boxes and torn wrapping paper from gifts I had meant to deliver. The blue cashmere sweater lay folded neatly on my coffee table, the one I had picked out for my mother. I stared at it for a long time. Then I pulled out my laptop. I logged into the nonprofit website I'd seen on the diner bulletin board. They specialized in helping survivors of financial abuse, people manipulated, guilted, and gaslit by the very ones who were supposed to love them. Under Ways to Give, I selected one-time donation. Amount, $1,300, the exact amount I'd sent my family for holiday support. Note, in honor of all the daughters who finally say no. Click. Done. Then I opened a new savings account and labeled it Future for me. It wasn't much at first, just what I would have sent them that month. But it was mine. It felt holy. That night, Clara, my downstairs neighbor, knocked on my door. She was in her 70s, sharp as a tack, and wore oversized glasses that made her look like a retired librarian in a French film. "I made too much soup," she said, lifting the pot like an offering. "And you've been too quiet." I invited her in. We talked over soup and leftover peppermint bark. She asked how my holiday went. I told her the truth. "Well," she said, sipping tea, "the beautiful thing about hitting bottom is it gives you two choices: stay buried or plant something new." She invited me to her Sunday dinner club. 6 neighbors. No pressure, no politics, just food, laughter, and the occasional terrible card game. I said yes. It was the first yes I gave that wasn't tied to obligation. At the first dinner, I made roasted butternut squash and brought a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. That night, sitting around a mismatched table with strangers turned friends, I realized something. I had never felt this safe with my own family, and not once during that evening did anyone ask me for money. 2 weeks later, my manager Lisa called me into her office. "You're different," she said. "Focused, sharper. Whatever happened over the holidays, stay in that energy." She promoted me to lead our biggest account of the year. For the first time, I didn't call home to share the news. Instead, I bought myself flowers. Then I went home, made dinner, and lit a candle for no reason at all. That Sunday, Clara asked casually, "What will you do for Christmas next year?" I hadn't thought that far ahead, but I looked around her kitchen, at the chipped mugs, the old jazz vinyl playing in the background, the people who had slowly filled in the spaces my family vacated, and said, something different, something better. That night, I signed up to sponsor holiday gifts for 5 seniors. Not out of guilt, not to be included, but because I finally knew what real giving felt like. The gift bag was simple. Brown paper, no bow, just a handwritten name in violet ink, Mrs. Diaz. Inside it was a lavender cashmere scarf, soft as a whisper, and a note I'd folded in half 3 times before finally tucking it beneath the tissue paper. For the artist who still sees beauty even when her hands no longer shape it. May warmth wrap around you like the colors you once gave the world. I never met Mrs. Diaz before that day, but I'd read her file. Retired art teacher, widowed, used to run a community art program out of her garage. Arthritis had taken her ability to paint, but not her eye. I delivered her gift personally. The community center buzzed with holiday chatter, the smell of cinnamon rolls and coffee hanging in the air like nostalgia. Volunteers in Santa hats moved through the crowd, calling out names. Laughter spilled from the card tables. Old jazz played through a cheap speaker. I found her near the window, a tiny woman with elegant cheekbones and perfectly arched brows. She looked like someone who used to hold court in a Paris salon and still might, if given the chance. "Mrs. Diaz?" I asked. She turned slowly, her eyes locked on mine with surprising sharpness. "I have something for you." I handed her the bag. She unfolded the scarf delicately, fingers trembling, not from frailty, but reverence. When she held it to her cheek, her eyes welled with tears. "This color," she whispered. "I used to mix this exact shade. Orchid number 47, my favorite." I smiled. "They said you loved purple." She took a long breath, then looked up. "No one's ever remembered that." She pulled the scarf around her neck like it belonged to her already. "Who are you?" she asked. "Just a volunteer," I almost said. But something inside me shifted. "I'm someone who used to confuse giving with earning love," I replied. "Now I give because I want to. That's enough." She studied me again, like she was painting me in her mind. "Someone hurt you recently." I nodded. "They do that to the soft ones," she said matter-of-factly. "But softness isn't weakness. It's art. It's courage. Keep it." I didn't realize I was crying until she patted my hand. We sat together for another hour, sipping cocoa and watching the snow fall through the frosted windows. She told me stories about the children she taught, how she used to assign each student a color of the week based on their mood. "You," she said finally, "would have been cobalt blue." Quiet, deep, but strong enough to hold the whole painting together. It was the first time in months someone had seen me for who I was without asking what I could give them. Later that afternoon, I helped clean up. While stacking chairs, I overheard one of the center directors whisper, "That's the girl who brought the jazz record for Mr. Washington. He hasn't smiled like that in years." It wasn't about being noticed. It was about being useful in a way that didn't cost me pieces of myself. Back home that night, I placed the small stack of handwritten thank you notes I'd received on my bookshelf, right next to the unopened Christmas card from my mother, which had arrived 2 days late, and simply read, "Hope your holidays were peaceful. Mom." No apology, no explanation, just a sentence as cold as the snowstorm I'd driven through to see her. I didn't reply. Because peace, I had learned, isn't something they give you. You make it. You wrap it around your shoulders like a purple scarf, and you keep walking. I was no longer the daughter begging for a seat at their table. I was the woman building a new table, with room for everyone who brought love, not expectation. It happened on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting it. Not there, not then. I had just finished a client lunch and was walking through downtown Seattle, sipping the last of my coffee when I saw him. Ryan. He was standing in front of a boutique storefront, peering into a display of vintage watches, hands in his coat pockets, brow furrowed like he was calculating something important. For a moment, I stopped breathing. Not from fear, but from the flood of old reflexes, the instinct to shrink, to question, to brace. But this time, I didn't look away. I walked straight toward him. My heels echoed on the sidewalk like a countdown. He turned, saw me, and I watched the exact sequence I expected play across his face. Surprise, calculation, followed by the practiced warmth of a man trying to get back in. "Natalie," he said, voice a notch too bright. "Wow, what are the odds?" I smiled politely, keeping my distance. "Ryan, you look great," he added, glancing at my coat, my hair, my whole presence like he was searching for an angle. "I am great," I replied, simply. There was a beat of silence. I didn't fill it. He shifted. "Listen, about everything that happened, it's all kind of water under the bridge, right?" "Is it?" I asked. He chuckled awkwardly. "Come on, Nat, it's been months. Family stuff gets messy, we all said things. You know how Mom gets." I tilted my head. "I do. I also know how you get when you think no one's listening. That wiped the grin off his face. He tried again. Look, we've had a rough time. The spa deal fell through. Mom lost the house. Things are different now. Different. Because the ATM had powered down. He softened his tone. Maybe we can talk. Grab coffee? Just you and me. Like old times. Like old times? When I funded your life while you laughed behind my back? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. No, Ryan, I don't do old times. I do truth. And the truth is, you used me. Both of you did. You didn't just take money, you erased me. He looked around, embarrassed now. Okay, you've made your point. Can we just move on from the drama? This isn't drama, I said. This is distance, and I'm keeping it. He stepped forward. You're really gonna stay mad forever? I met his eyes. I'm not mad anymore. I'm done. A flicker of panic crossed his face. Not because he lost me, but because he lost access. He tried once more, low and smug. You think this new life replaces family? I smiled, genuinely now. But I finally understand that real family doesn't ask you to bleed to feel loved. I stepped back, ready to walk away. Tell Mom we ran into each other, he called out. She asks about you. I turned briefly. Then she knows where to find me. But she wouldn't, because I was no longer orbiting their world. I was building one that didn't require permission to exist in it. As I walked away, I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. About me. I used to think healing would feel like fireworks. Loud, triumphant, undeniable. But it didn't. It felt like making soup on a Sunday afternoon. Like folding warm laundry. Like not checking my phone for missed calls that would never come. It felt like breath. Steady. Quiet. Mine. That Christmas, 1 year after being left on the porch like a stranger, I hosted dinner. Not for family by blood, but for those who had become family by choice. Clara brought her famous lemon cake, the one that cracked down the center every time and somehow tasted better because of it. Mr. Patel from 4B brought samosas, and Lisa, my boss-turned-friend, showed up with 2 bottles of wine and a surprise. Her wife, Erin, who loved old movies and swore she'd seen It's a Wonderful Life 37 times. We didn't dress up. We didn't pretend. We just came as we were. My living room, once sterile and silent, now bloomed with mismatched chairs around a long borrowed table. I'd spent all morning setting it with vintage plates from a thrift store, each one different, each one chipped in a beautiful way. At the center, instead of a fancy floral arrangement, I placed a single pie. Apple. Not for tradition, not for nostalgia, but because I'd finally baked one again, and this time it stayed whole. As we sat down, Clara raised her glass. 2 second chances and new definitions. We clinked glasses, laughter filling the space where once there had only been obligation. I looked around the table. No one here knew my childhood nickname. No one here remembered the Christmases of matching pajamas and overcooked turkey. No one here had ever borrowed money or expected me to show up with more than my presence. And still, here we were. Connected not by history, but by choice. After dinner, as the others drifted to the kitchen or flopped onto the couch, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights blinked below, and snow began to fall, just like it had 1 year ago. But I wasn't on a porch begging to be seen anymore. I was home, not in a house built by someone else's love, but in a life built by reclaiming my own. I thought of Ryan's words that day downtown. You think this new life replaces family? And the answer rose like a flame in my chest. It redefines it. It doesn't erase the scars. It honors them, then builds anyway. Behind me, I heard laughter again. Clara's unmistakable cackle. Someone had spilled wine. Someone else offered to mop. And no one asked me to fix it alone. I glanced at the pie on the table, steam still rising. Last year, it had cracked in the cold. This year, it fed a full room. Same recipe, different table. Entirely new meaning. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is stop knocking on locked doors and build one that opens wide for the people who knock with love, not demand. It took one locked door for me to realize I'd been the one holding the key the whole time. For years, I confused sacrifice with love. I thought that by giving more, money, time, emotional labor, I could earn a place that should have been mine without conditions. But the truth is, some families don't change. They just sharpen the tools they use to keep you small, compliant, and quiet. When I stood outside that house in the snow, watching the people I supported celebrate without me, something inside me shattered, and something stronger grew in its place. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't yell or demand apologies. I simply walked away and stopped feeding the machine that kept me invisible. Now, I've built a life surrounded by people who choose me, not because I fund them, but because I show up with love, and they do too. If this resonates with you, please know, walking away isn't failure. It's freedom. Thank you for watching my story. If you've ever had to choose between peace and people who call themselves family, know that you're not alone. Drop a comment if you've ever felt this kind of invisible betrayal, and let's hold space for each other. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, true stories of healing and self-worth. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop knocking and build your own door.